She caught me staring, and instead of getting mad, she smiled and said 5 words I still cannot forget. "If you want to see, just ask." In that moment, I froze. My name is Marcus. I am 36 years old, and I moved to Riverside Lane because I wanted to disappear for a while. After my divorce, I did not want love or hope or drama. I just wanted quiet. My ex-wife Sarah and I spent 3 long years tearing each other apart. At first, we were happy. We laughed, we dreamed, we made plans. Then, slowly, the laughs turned into arguments, the plans turned into blame, and at the end, there was nothing left but tired silence. When we finally signed the papers, I packed my things into my old truck and drove until the city turned into small houses and slow streets. That is how I found the little place on Riverside Lane, a small house with peeling paint and a front porch that needed work. It was not perfect, but it was mine. No memories, no raised voices, no broken promises, just quiet walls and an empty bed. I told myself this was all I needed. Work during the day, sleep at night, and try not to think too much in between. The house next door had blue shutters and a garden that always looked like it belonged in a magazine. Neat rows of flowers, a white bird feeder, a wooden porch with a rocking chair. That was where she lived. Elena. She was 50, with dark hair she usually wore pulled back and a calm, steady way of moving, like nothing could shake her. People in the neighborhood said she was a widow. They spoke about her with soft voices, the way people do when they feel sorry for someone. I would see her in the mornings watering her flowers or bringing in the mail. Sometimes she sat on her porch with a book, her legs crossed, a blanket over her lap when it was cold. We would wave to each other, just quick, polite hellos. I never thought much of it. She was my neighbor. I was the new divorced guy who wanted to mind his own business. Then one Tuesday morning, everything changed. It was early, maybe 6:30. The sun was just starting to rise, and the air felt cool and new. I stepped out onto my front porch with a cup of coffee in one hand and a small plastic watering can in the other. I wanted to act like I knew what I was doing with the plants the previous owner left behind. I was not trying to look into her kitchen. The angle of our houses just made it happen. Her curtain was open, and I saw her standing by the counter, making coffee. Her dark hair was loose around her shoulders, and she wore a light blue robe that matched the shutters on her house. She was humming some soft tune, something I did not recognize, but it sounded like a song that had been with her for years. For some reason, I could not look away. It was not about seeing anything I should not see. It was the way she moved, slow and sure, belonging in that space. She looked peaceful, in a way I had not felt in a long time. Like she was not trying to impress anyone. Like she knew herself and was okay with who she was. Then, she turned her head and saw me. Our eyes met through the glass. My heart jumped so hard I almost dropped the watering can. I felt like a kid caught doing something wrong. I expected her to frown, to pull the curtain shut, to pretend I did not exist the next time we crossed paths at the mailbox. Instead, she smiled. She set her mug down, walked closer to the window, and spoke just loud enough for me to hear her through the quiet morning air. "If you want to see, just ask." Then she reached up and closed the curtain. I stood there on my porch like an idiot, my mouth slightly open, the watering can hanging from my fingers. My face burned. My heart was racing, and yet I could not move. What was I supposed to do with that? With her words, with that calm smile, with the way she did not look angry at all. The rest of the day I walked around like someone had hit pause and forgot to press play again. At work, I kept hearing her voice in my head. "If you want to see, just ask." It did not sound teasing or rude. It sounded simple and honest, like she was giving me permission to be curious, to not hide, to just be real. For the next few days, I tried to act normal. I mowed my lawn, took out the trash, checked the mail. Every time I saw Elena outside, my stomach tightened. But she smiled at me like always. No mention of that morning. No strange looks. Just the same warm, "Hi, Marcus," as if I had not been standing on my porch, staring through her kitchen window like a fool. One Saturday afternoon, I was in my front yard working on the fence gate. The latch kept sticking, and every time I pulled it, it made this awful grinding sound. I had a screwdriver in my hand and absolutely no idea what I was doing, but I did not want to admit that. I was already the new divorced guy. I did not also want to be the useless with tools guy. You are going to break that if you keep doing it like that. I looked up and saw her by her garden, holding a cup of tea. The light caught her hair, and there was a small smile on her face. Then maybe you should come show me how it is done, neighbor, I said, trying to sound relaxed. She set her tea down and walked over. She wore jeans and a simple white shirt. Her hair was tied back in a loose ponytail. Up close, I noticed tiny lines at the corners of her eyes, the kind that come from years of real smiles, not fake ones. She took the screwdriver from my hand. Her fingers brushed mine for a second, and a small spark shot through me straight to my chest. Here, she said, crouching by the latch. You are forcing it the wrong way. You have to loosen this part first. She worked on it for a moment, then turned the latch. It clicked open, smooth and easy. There, she said, standing back up and putting the screwdriver in my hand. Now you know. Thanks, I said. Guess I owe you one. Just try not to break anything else, she replied with a quick smile before walking back to her garden. After that, something small shifted between us. It was not big or dramatic, just a little softer, a little closer. A few days later, she knocked on my door with a plate of muffins. She said she made too many and thought I might want some. I invited her in, and we sat at my kitchen table talking like we had known each other longer than a few weeks. I told her about my job as a construction manager, how I had been stuck on the same project for months. She laughed at the way I complained about lazy coworkers. She told me about her garden and how her tomatoes refused to turn red no matter what she did. Her voice was gentle, and she listened like every word I said mattered. Before she left, she said, "You should come over for tea sometime. My porch gets the best light in the evenings." I said yes without even thinking. I did not know it then, but between that fence latch, those muffins, and that soft invite to her porch, my whole life had already started to change. The first time I went over for tea, it felt like I was walking into a different world. Her porch smelled like sun and flowers. A small round table sat between two old wooden chairs, both with faded blue cushions. A pot of tea steamed in the middle. She had set out 2 cups, like she already knew I would say yes. "You made it," she said with a soft smile. I wasn't sure if there was a dress code, I joked, looking down at my plain t-shirt and jeans. She laughed. "You're fine, Marcus. This porch doesn't judge." We sat down, and for a while we just sipped our tea and watched the street. Cars rolled by now and then. A dog barked somewhere down the block. The late light stretched long shadows across her neatly cut grass. She was the one who went deeper first. "My husband loved this porch," she said, looking at the light on the railing. "Thomas. He would sit here every evening with a beer and tell me every boring detail of his day like it was the most important thing in the world." "You miss that?" I asked quietly. Her eyes stayed on the street. "I miss what I thought we had," she said. "He died 4 years ago. Cancer. One day we were talking about buying a new car, and the next day we were talking about treatment plans and test results." She paused. "I still talk to his picture sometimes. Ask him what he thinks. Old habits are hard to break." I listened. She did not sound bitter, just honest. "What about you?" she asked. "You moved in alone." I figured there was a story. "There was," I said, and it all came out. How Sarah and I met in college. How we were crazy about each other at first. How every fight was louder than the last. How we both started keeping score instead of keeping promises. How we stayed together long after we stopped being kind. "I kept thinking if I tried harder it would get better," I said. "But it just got worse. By the time we signed the papers, there was nothing left. Just 2 people who were tired of hurting each other." Elena reached across the table and put her hand on mine. Her touch was gentle, but steady. "You didn't fail, Marcus," she said. "You just stayed with the wrong person too long. That's not the same thing." I did not know I needed to hear that until she said it. My eyes burned for a second, and I had to look away. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like maybe I wasn't broken, just wounded. And maybe wounds could heal. After that, Tea on her porch became a regular thing. Some evenings I brought cookies from the store. Sometimes she made lemon bars that fell apart when you picked them up, but tasted perfect anyway. We talked about small things and big things, her favorite books, my worst days at work, how strange it felt to start over when you were grown. One evening, instead of tea, I showed up with 2 cups of coffee from the shop on the corner. She raised an eyebrow when she saw them. Trying to change our tradition? Maybe I just wanted an excuse to stay a little longer, I said before I could stop myself. She held my eyes for a moment. The porch light made little gold specks in her dark irises. "You don't need an excuse, Marcus," she said softly. "You can stay as long as you want." That night, walking back to my house, her words stayed with me. You can stay as long as you want. It wasn't just about the porch. It felt bigger than that. Like maybe I had stepped into a place where I didn't have to be temporary. A week later, a storm rolled in fast. The sky turned heavy and dark, the kind of gray that warned you what was coming. Rain started hitting the windows in hard sheets. Thunder rumbled in the distance. I went to my front door to watch it, and that's when I saw her. Elena was on her porch, wrapped in a thick blanket, just sitting there, watching the rain. For a minute, I just stood in my doorway, wondering if I should leave her alone. Then something in me said no. I walked across the wet grass, feeling the cold drops soak through my shirt, and climbed her steps. "You're going to get soaked," she said, turning her head toward me. "Then share your blanket," I answered. She laughed and lifted one side. I slipped under it next to her. Our shoulders brushed, warm under the shared cover. The storm roared around us, but inside that small space, it felt quiet and safe. We didn't talk at first. We just sat and listened to the rain hitting the street, the roof, the leaves. The air smelled like wet dirt and flowers. Thunder rolled again, closer this time. "People don't really listen to rain anymore," she said softly. "They just rush from door to car and back again." "Maybe they just need someone to listen with," I said. She turned her head and looked at me. There was no teasing in her eyes, no game, just that same calm honesty I was starting to recognize. My heart beat a little faster. I did not move away. When the rain finally started to slow, I stood up, not really wanting to leave, but not sure what else to do. "Good night," I said. "Marcus," she said. Her hand reached out and wrapped gently around my wrist. I stopped and looked back down at her. The porch light made a soft halo around her face. "If you ever want to see," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the rain, "just ask." I smiled, not because I fully understood, but because for the first time in years, I wanted to try. I wanted to stop hiding behind fear. After that night, things changed again, in small ways. I started waking up early without an alarm. At 6 in the morning, her porch light would click on. I would grab my coffee and step outside. She would already be there with her tea, sitting in the same chair. We talked about her stubborn tomatoes that would not turn red, a stray orange cat that started sleeping under her porch, the Johnsons down the street who argued loud enough for the whole block to hear. It felt normal and safe. But under all that small talk, there was something else. Something we did not name. I fixed things for her without being asked. Her screen door that would not close right. A loose board on her steps. I carried her groceries in when she came home from the store, pretending it was nothing. She did things for me too. She left muffins on my doorstep with little handwritten notes. She tucked cut flowers into an old glass jar and left it on my porch railing. One note said, "Don't forget your umbrella today." I had not been cared for like that in so long, I almost forgot what it felt like. One Saturday, the neighborhood had a yard sale. Tables lined the driveways. Old lamps, books, clothes, anything people wanted to get rid of. I helped Elena set up her table. She had a box of old dishes, a few picture frames, and a small blue vase painted with tiny flowers. We were arranging everything when Mr. Chun from across the street walked over. He had that smile that made you feel like he was always about to say something you didn't want to hear. He looked at Elena, then at me, then back at her. "Didn't know you liked them younger, Elena," he said with a little laugh. "You two better be careful. People are going to talk." My face burned. I opened my mouth, but my throat felt tight. "We're just neighbors, Mr. Chun," I said. "Helpful neighbors." "Sure you are," he said. "Friendly neighbors." Then he walked away, laughing under his breath. Elena's smile stayed, but her hands moved faster as she rearranged the items. I saw the tension in her jaw, the way she avoided looking at me. "He talks because he's lonely," she said finally. "He thinks being loud means people care." She picked up the blue vase and looked at it for a second. Then she handed it to me. "Take this," she said. "It needs someone who will appreciate it." Later that day, she came over to my house. She was quieter than usual. We sat at my kitchen table, the blue vase between us, empty. She traced the rim of it with her finger. "After Thomas died," she began, her voice low, "I found things. Receipts from restaurants I had never been to. Text messages on his phone he tried to delete but didn't know how. Quote, I didn't say anything. I just listened. Everyone at the funeral talked about what a good man he was, how lucky I was to have loved him. They called me a saint for taking care of him." Her eyes shone, but no tears fell. But I was grieving two people, the man I thought I married and the man I never really knew. I wanted to reach for her hand, but before I could, she reached for mine, her fingers folded over my knuckles. "I don't usually tell people that," she said. "They like the simple story better, the widow who loved her husband until the end." "I'm not most people," I said. A small smile tugged at her mouth. "I know." Just then there was a knock on the door. Mrs. Patterson from down the street stood there with a dish I had lent her. She looked at Elena, then at me, then back at Elena. Her face softened. "You two doing okay?" she asked. "We're fine," Elena answered. Her voice was steady in a way that sounded like a choice. When she left, the house felt different, like the air had shifted somehow. "Let's make a rule," Elena said, turning back to me. "The neighborhood can think whatever they want, but we tell each other the truth, no pretending, no half-stories." "What's our truth?" I asked. She held my gaze. "Right now. Two people sitting at a table being honest. That's enough." I squeezed her hand. "I like mornings because you're in them," I said before I could stop myself. Her cheeks turned a soft pink. She shook her head, but she didn't pull her hand away. "I'm not scared of being 50, Marcus," she said quietly. "I'm scared of people treating me like I have to explain myself. I'm scared of feeling like I owe someone something just because they stayed." "You're not an explanation," I said. "You're someone I want to know better. That's all." Later, when she stood up to leave, I walked her to the door. Dark clouds were gathering outside again. The air felt heavy, like another storm was on its way. At the door, she stopped. Our hands were still holding on to each other. "You're the first person I've trusted in a long time," she said. "Don't make me feel like I owe you something for it." "I won't," I said. "But I am making you breakfast tomorrow." That made her laugh. She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. It was quick and soft, but it felt like a door opening. She stepped out onto the porch just as the first raindrops started to fall. I stood in the doorway watching her cross the yard to her house, the sky darkening above us. This storm felt different. I didn't know it yet, but by the time it was over, nothing between us would be the same. That night, the storm finally broke. By 9 o'clock, the wind was hitting my windows so hard I thought the glass might crack. Thunder shook the house, and rain pounded the roof like it was trying to get in. I was sitting on my couch with the TV on, not really watching, just listening to the noise outside. Then, all at once, the lights went out. The TV shut off. The fridge went silent. The whole house fell into a heavy kind of dark. I sat there staring into the black, listening to the storm and my own heartbeat. I walked to the front window and pushed the curtain aside. That was when I saw the soft glow of candles in Elena's house. Little circles of light moved behind her windows. A moment later, I saw her shadow on the front porch. Then there was a knock on my door. "Marcus?" Her voice sounded a little shaky. My power went out and I can't find the circuit breaker. I hate going down there. I grabbed my flashlight and opened the door. She stood there in a blanket, barefoot, her hair wet and curling from the rain. Candlelight from her house flickered behind her. "You're gonna get sick," I said. "So are you," she answered, almost smiling. We ran across the yard, through the rain, and up onto her porch. Inside, her house smelled like cinnamon and wax and wet air. Candles burned on the kitchen counter and on the coffee table in the living room, throwing a warm glow over everything. "The breaker is in the basement," she said. "I never go down there at night. It feels wrong." "I'll protect you from the ghosts," I said. She gave a small laugh and shook her head, but she walked beside me toward the basement door. I opened it, and we started down the stairs. The flashlight beam cut through the dark, lighting the unfinished walls and the narrow steps. I could hear her breathing behind me. The air felt thick, not just from the storm, but from everything that had been growing between us. We reached the bottom. I found the breaker panel on the wall and opened it. A few switches were down. I flipped them back up. The lights flickered, then came back to life. The hum of the fridge upstairs started again. "You just saved me," she said with a breath of relief. "I don't think you need saving," I said, turning to face her. "You're stronger than you think." She stood there, holding the blanket tight around her. For a moment she looked older. Not in a bad way, just like someone who had survived a lot. "You don't know me as well as you think you do," she said. "Then let me know you better," I replied. She looked at me for a long second, then shook her head a little. "Marcus, don't," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because I don't want to confuse being lonely with actually caring about someone, and I don't want you to make that mistake either." Quote. Her words hit me hard, but I understood. We stayed there in the basement with the light buzzing overhead and the sound of the storm still heavy above us. Neither of us moved toward the stairs right away. It was like we were both stuck between wanting to step closer and wanting to stay safe. Finally, we went back up. In the kitchen, the candles were still burning, even though the power was back. She did not blow them out. She filled a kettle and set it on the stove. "Tea?" she asked. "Always," I said. We sat at her kitchen table with steaming mugs between our hands. The rain still hit the windows, but the thunder was a little farther away now. The candlelight made her face look soft and warm. "I used to love storms," she said quietly. "When I was a kid, I would sit by the window and watch the lightning." "What changed?" I asked. "Thomas died on a rainy night," she said. "Car accident on the highway. Ever since then, every storm feels like a warning. I hear thunder and I think of a phone call I do not want to get." "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be," she answered. "I am trying to like them again. Maybe it is time." She stared down at the ripples in her tea like she was looking at another life. "You deserve peace, Elena," I said. "Not memories that hurt you every time the sky gets dark." She smiled a little, but her eyes were still sad. "Peace is boring, Marcus," she said softly. "Sometimes the noise reminds you you're still alive." Thunder rolled again, but much softer now. The storm was moving away. "I have not felt like someone really saw me in years," she whispered. I did not speak. I just looked at her and tried to let her see that I was there, that I was not going to look away from the hard parts. She reached up and touched the side of my face. Her fingers were warm and gentle. "If you want to see," she said, her voice low, "just ask." My heart stopped for a second. "I'm already looking," I said, and I was, not just at her face, but at all of it. The way she talked about the husband who hurt her, and the one she buried. The way she held her pain, without turning hard. The way she still opened her door to other people when it would have been easier to lock it. She leaned forward. Our foreheads touched first. Then her lips met mine. The kiss was slow and soft. It did not feel wild or rushed. It felt like we were both putting broken pieces back where they belonged. My hand found her cheek. Her fingers curled in the front of my shirt. When we pulled back, she let out a small breath and rested her head on my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around her and we sat there like that, listening to the softer rain and the quiet house. After a while, the candle started to burn low. The flames got smaller. "I should let you sleep," I said. She opened her eyes, sleepy but calm. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For not running away when I was scared you would." I did not have an answer, so I just smiled and squeezed her hand. When I stepped outside, the rain had slowed to a light, steady fall. The storm felt different now. Not like an enemy, more like something that had passed through and left room for new air. The next morning I woke up with a feeling I had not felt in a long time. Light. The sky was clear and blue, the streets still wet from the storm, but everything looked new. I showered, got dressed, and walked out to check my mail. That was when I saw her. Elena stood by her mailbox, holding a small stack of letters. She looked beautiful in a simple shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back, but there was something tight in her eyes. "Hey," I said, feeling a smile form without trying. She turned and nodded. "Hey, Marcus." I waited for her to say something about last night, about the kiss, about the way we fell asleep in the glow of candles and quiet. "About last night," I started. "We should probably just forget it happened," she said quickly. The words hit me like a hit to the chest. "Forget it?" I asked. "Elena, that was not a mistake." "I know it wasn't," she said, looking around like she was afraid someone might be watching us. A car rolled by, and she waited until it passed. "But people talk, Marcus. They always talk. I cannot handle that right now. It is not that I do not feel something. I do. That is what scares me." Before I could respond, a shiny black car pulled up to the curb next to her house. A man stepped out wearing a sharp suit and an easy smile that I hated as soon as I saw it. I recognized him from a picture I had seen on a shelf inside her house. "Elena," he said, "you did not tell me you had company." Her whole body changed. Her shoulders went tight, her voice turned stiff. "David," she said, "you did not tell me you were coming." He glanced at me, his eyes flicking from my face to my work boots and back up, like he was sizing me up and finding me lacking. "And you are?" he asked. "Just a neighbor," I said. "Marcus." "The helpful neighbor type," he said with a small, fake smile. "How nice." "David, please," Elena said under her breath. He talked right over her. "You always did have a soft spot for projects," he said. "People you think you can fix." My hands curled into fists at my sides. "I think you should leave," I said. He ignored me and looked at Elena again. "Do you really want the neighborhood whispering about you again?" he asked. "You know how they get." Her voice cracked just a little. "David, stop." He walked back to his car, still smiling like he owned the street. "We will talk later, when you are thinking more clearly," he said out the window. Then he drove away. Elena stood there in the quiet street, her arms wrapped around herself like she was cold, even though the sun was warm. "I am sorry you had to see that," she said. "Who is he?" I asked. "Someone I tried to be with after Thomas died," she said softly. "It ended really badly." "Does not look like it ended at all," I said before I could stop myself. Hurt flashed across her face. "That is not fair, Marcus," she said. I took a slow breath. "You are right. I am sorry. It is just, after last night, seeing him here, hearing him talk to you like that. It makes me feel like I do not understand what is happening between us." She stepped closer, but not too close. Her eyes were wet, but she did not cry. "Marcus, I need time to figure things out," she said. "I do not know what I am doing, with him, with you, with any of this. I just know I am scared. I need space to think." I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to grab her and say I would wait forever if I had to. "Take all the time you need," I said quietly. "I am not going anywhere." Days passed. We did not talk. Not on the porch, not by the mailboxes, not at the fence. I saw her through her kitchen window washing dishes or reading at the table. She saw me too. I knew she did, because every time our eyes almost met, we both looked away fast. I told myself I was giving her what she asked for. But every night, sitting alone on my porch, the quiet did not feel peaceful anymore. It felt like waiting for a storm I could not see. On Friday evening, my friend Lucas stopped by with a six-pack of beer and the kind of look that said he was ready to hear bad news. "You look terrible," he said, dropping into the chair next to me on my porch. "Let me guess, girl problems." I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Then I told him everything. About Elena, about the storm and the kiss, about David showing up in his expensive car, talking like he still had some claim on her, about how she asked me for space and how I had no idea what that really meant. Lucas listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set his bottle down and leaned forward. "Marcus, man," he said, "you can't fix people who are still bleeding from someone else. You will just end up cut too. Maybe you should let this one go before it tears you apart." Part of me knew he might be right, but then I looked across the yard and saw Elena in her garden. She was trying to untangle her hose, and it was wrapped around itself in tight knots. Her shoulders sagged. She looked tired. I stood up. "Where are you going?" Lucas asked. "To be a helpful neighbor," I said. He shook his head, but he did not stop me. I crossed the grass and stepped into her yard. The air smelled like cut grass and flowers. She looked up when she heard me. "This thing hates me," she said, holding up the hose. "I swear it does this on purpose." "Let me help," I said. We worked on the hose together without talking at first. Our fingers bumped and slid next to each other as we pulled at the twists. Finally, the knot loosened, and the water started moving through it in a smooth line. She turned off the faucet and let the hose fall to the ground. For a second, we just stood there, facing each other. "I ended things with David," she said suddenly. "For good this time." I searched her face. "Are you okay?" I asked. She gave a small, tired smile. "Not really," she said. "But I will be. I just could not let fear make my choices anymore." She looked down at the wet grass, then back up at me. "I have lost people before," she said. "I know what it feels like to build walls so high nothing can reach you. It feels safe, but it is not. The problem with walls is that they do not only keep out the hurt, they keep out the light too." I reached for her hand, and she let me take it. "Then maybe it is time to open the windows," I said. She stared at our hands, then squeezed mine. "You are too patient with me," she whispered. "Maybe I finally found something worth being patient for," I answered. That night, I sat on my porch like always, but this time, the light between our houses was on. I did not know if she turned it on for me or out of habit, but when I looked over, she was there on her porch with a mug in her hands. "The storm is over," I called. "For now," she said. I walked across the grass and sat down beside her. We did not talk much. The air smelled like wet dirt and new growth. It smelled like hope. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she said at last. "I tried to," I said. "It did not work." She laughed, and it sounded different, lighter, like she was starting to trust herself again. Spring came slowly to Riverside Lane. The trees grew new leaves. Little green shoots pushed out of the dirt in her garden. The air got warmer and softer. We fell into a rhythm that felt easy. We did not put a name on it. We did not call it anything. We just kept showing up. Most mornings, we ended up on one porch or the other with our drinks. She told me about a bird that kept stealing bits of her flowers. I complained about a coworker who never did his share. We talked about movies, recipes, neighbors, nothing big, nothing dramatic. It should have been boring. It was not. One Saturday, I found her cutting back her rose bushes. The sun was bright and warm. Her yellow gardening gloves were stained with dirt. "You are here early," she said without looking up. "Could not sleep," I said. "The birds were too loud." She smiled. "That is what happens when you choose peace, Marcus. It comes with bird song." I helped her trim the roses and gather dead branches into a bag. The sun warmed my shoulders. I watched the way the light caught in her hair. She looked more relaxed than I had ever seen her. "You have been smiling a lot lately," I said. "Maybe because you stopped walking around looking so sad all the time," she teased. Then her smile softened. "Or maybe I finally gave myself permission to be happy." We spent the day in her yard. We planted new flowers where the old ones had died over winter. We drank lemonade and sat in the grass when we got tired. It was simple, That was what made it feel important. That afternoon, the Hendersons down the street had a party for their 30th wedding anniversary. They invited the whole neighborhood. People brought food. White lights were strung up in their backyard. Music floated through the air. Elena and I walked over together. As we passed Mr. Chun's driveway, I saw him watching us with that same knowing smirk, but this time something was different. I did not care. Elena did not either. She wore a simple yellow dress. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. She did not look like she was hiding from anything. We ate, talked to a few neighbors, and watched couples dance on the grass. "You look nervous," she said, standing beside me as people moved to the music. "I do not really know how to dance," I said. "You told me once you did not know how to love someone again either," she said. "But you figured it out. One step at a time." She held out her hand. I took it. We moved onto the grass with the other couples. We did not do any real dance moves. We just swayed slowly. She rested her head against my chest. I felt her breath through my shirt. The world around us faded into soft noise. "People are staring," I said quietly. "I know," she whispered. "Let them stare. I am done hiding from being happy." Some people smiled at us. Some just watched. Let them, I thought. They did not know our storms or our nights with candles, or the quiet promises we had made, without saying the words out loud. Later in the week, I found her on her porch with a small notebook in her lap. She was drawing something. Flowers, maybe. I sat down next to her. "What are you working on?" I asked. "Nothing," she said with a small smile. "Just thinking about how love is supposed to feel." "And how is it supposed to feel?" I asked. "Not like lightning," she said. "Lightning is loud and bright and gone in a second. People think love has to be like that, huge and shocking. But I think real love is like rain. Steady, quiet, sometimes annoying, but it is what makes everything grow." I reached for her hand. She let me lace my fingers with hers. "I guess we made it through the storm then," I said. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "We did not just make it through," she said softly. "We learned how to stand in it." That evening we sat and watched the sun go down. The sky turned orange, then pink, then purple. I caught her looking at me instead of the view. "What?" I asked. "You still look at me like you cannot believe this is real," she said. "I cannot believe it," I admitted, but I stopped pretending I do not want it to be. She laughed and shook her head. "You are impossible," she said. "Maybe," I said, "but you are still here." She moved closer and placed her hand on my chest. "When you first moved in," she said, "I thought you were just another lonely man trying to fix a broken fence so he did not have to think about his own life. I did not know you would start fixing things in me too, parts one thought were too broken to work anymore." We sat there until the first stars came out. No thunder, no heavy clouds, just a clear sky and two people who had stopped running from their own hearts. "Elena," I said quietly, "I never said thank you." "For what?" she asked. "For that first morning," I said, "when you caught me looking through your window." Her smile turned playful. "If you want to see," she whispered, leaning in, "just ask." I smiled and kissed her. This time there was no fear, no wondering what the neighbors would say, no questions about what we were doing. It was a simple, sure kiss that felt like turning a page. When we pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. "You know people on this street are still going to talk about us," she said. "Let them talk," I said. "They do not understand this kind of love, the kind that is quiet." Right then, tiny drops of rain began to fall. Not a storm, just a light spring shower. We stayed where we were, not running inside, listening to the soft tapping on the porch roof. We sat there breathing together, hands joined, feeling the gentle rain. In that moment I understood something I had not known, even when I was married. Love does not always come crashing in like thunder. It does not always shout or demand or blaze. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it is the steady sound of rain you only notice when you finally stop running long enough to listen. Real love is not about perfect timing or perfect people. It is about showing up every day, even when you are scared. It is choosing someone again and again, even when you both carry scars. The bravest thing I ever did was not some grand gesture. It was staying when everything in me wanted to protect myself and walk away. It was letting Elena see every broken part of me and believing her when she stayed. She taught me that the heart does not need fireworks. It needs truth. It needs patience. It needs someone who will sit with you in the storm and stay when the rain comes. That someone, for me, was the woman next door who once caught me staring through her kitchen window and simply said, "If you want to see, just ask."